baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Win Sales Now podcast. And our guest today is a combat veteran leading the United States Army into battle for more than 20 years, a mentor and guide to African immigrants, and he holds a Doctor's of Business Administration specializing in supply chain management. Today, he's going to show us the dark side of business and address how business people are suffering behind a facade of fake social media posts and images. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our good friend Adebayo Adeleke.
G'day, mates. Welcome. Great to have you here.
Hi, everyone. Nice, awesome. I'm awesome. I'm stoked to be here. I'm really stoked to be here.
Well, it's great to see you there. I'm also joined by my co-host, Robert Brus from Go All In, who's also ex-military, jumping out of the back of aeroplanes, a wild man, as would say. Now, Adebayo, you're the expert here, and you're considered as one of the most influential Nigerian business speakers in America right now. And based on our conversations last week, you said there's a dark side of business. What does that mean?
So there is this dark side of business that the current business disposition is not exposing. The ups and downs, the valleys that sometimes, depending on how you craft your business, the valleys might be deeper than you think, and mostly the world wants to see the hills. They want to see the top of the mountains, but nobody wants to talk to you about the valleys. And that valleys is where character is born. It's like a crucible whereby you go through and reform yourself. And I spoke with you when we last chatted about social media influence, whereby people present themselves to be the successful business men and women on social media, but yet they never really explain to you of the dark side, the dark moments. One of the gentlemen that I interviewed on my podcast, actually very successful young man. He had a t-shirt business, t-shirt business that valued at the height of it about $3 million. He started from selling t-shirt from in his apartment, but in the process of, in the height of it all, he experienced a lot of dark moments, and he kind of stepped away from the business a little bit and actually relaunched the business now. So during the podcast, it kind of explained those dark moments and how it was reformed during those dark moments. And actually, most people won't believe this. He told me he was glad he went through those dark moments, because the lesson he learned through those dark moments, he wouldn't have learned that lesson if the business actually continued to be successful. So, there's always said disappointment is always a blessing in disguise. This actually is one of them, because during that, he was able to find out, like, wow, there's a lot I do not know about business. He failed in certain areas, and through that process, it was a learning moment for him. He learned, and then he was able to propel himself forward. But this dark side, most people don't want to do it. They don't want to go into it. They don't want to address it. They just want to see the shining part of life. But I hate to break it to them. It doesn't work that way. And oftentimes, a lot of people stay in the dark before they see the light. They stay in the dark for a long time to stay in the dark. And actually, the character of the business, the value system of the business, the culture of the business is being built during the dark moments. But I'm worried about the narrative that we're selling to the younger generation about the upcoming businessman, that everything is going to be rosy. It's going to be, everything's all going to be fine. You do this, you slap this on it, you portray yourself to be happy, but yet you're so sad, And I'm worried. I'm worried because of the instruction and what we're trying to tell the upcoming generation, that you don't have to go through hard life. Everything's all going to be fine. And that's what is being put. I mean, I saw through faith. I mean, you do your business on social media, and I probably Rob does the same thing as well. But you see all these pictures, you wonder, wow, what do these people ever go through dark moments? Do these people ever go through the dark times? Well, for me, I explained to you that our greatness is in our imperfection. Our greatness is in our imperfection. Most of our imperfection is found in our dark moments, and ability to embrace those dark moments, embrace our imperfection, is our way to greatness. And most people don't realize it. By the time they realize it, it's too late in the game. And then is all, I wish I was kind of deal. But that's just my point of view of what I see lately. And I haven't talked to a lot of business leaders. They'll show you their moments, but they'll show you their moments privately, but they're not going to talk about it publicly. I don't know why, for certain reasons. I believe if you can share your triumphs publicly, you should be able to share your low days as well. So
yeah, that's a really important perspective to share. And I think you're quite right about the narrative. One of the questions that I get asked often about all the interviews that I've done, and I've done a couple of hundred interviews now, and people say, what's the biggest lesson that you've learnt about hearing all of these go all in stories? And it's about, doing whatever it takes to succeed. The thing that I discovered is there's a difference between resilience and tolerance. And if you look at an entrepreneur or a business owner, they put their own capital at risk, they put their time at risk, they put their money at risk, their families, everything, in order to succeed, to make life better. They're trying to get to the other side of it. And I really believe that one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in just talking to so many people about doing whatever it takes to succeed is your ability to tolerate the hard times builds resilience. I think there's a difference between being able to tolerate it and then being resilient about something. And an example is that if you've ever been through a lawsuit, if you've ever had a lawyer come after you in business for some reason, it's a very, very unpleasant experience. But then when you go and lawyer up, the lawyer's like, don't worry about it. This is what I do all day, every day. They have so much tolerance to it that they've built this level of resilience that you just don't have. And I think the difference between really super successful entrepreneurs and just wantrepreneurs that are wanting to get there and wanting to get on the other side is they haven't tolerated enough pain to build the level of resilience they need to break through to the other side. And that's something, as you say, is never, ever spoken about.
In Taiwan at the moment, we have what's called a strawberry generation. And I heard this and I thought, what is the strawberry generation? And so I started to dig a little bit deeper. And my generation, we're coming up to our 40s. Our parents went through these hard times. They went living in houses with tin roofs. They lived with roads that were still made of dirt. They were getting up in the morning. They were going barefoot, picking rice in the rice fields before there was machinery. And what happened, they'd worked so hard for so long, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And over time, they amassed wealth. And the parents said, we don't want our children to go through what we went through. So now they've started to spoon feed them. And now they're in their 40s. They're starting these new businesses and their little cafes on the corner. And there's cafe culture everywhere. And they've never seen a hard time in their life. And see, what the interesting thing about a strawberry is, as soon as you touch a strawberry skin, it bruises. And this is what's happening in Taiwan right now. They get their first obstacle and they bruise. And this is the strawberry generation. And there's big problems.
I never thought of it that way, actually. It's quite profound because it's mind-boggling, and I, as a parent as well, I see it as well, try to instill the values that I got from my parent in my kids. And I realized that if I start doing it in today's culture, I'm probably the Child Protective Service will come after me because I'm being brutally, I'm handling my kids. But to be honest with you, and it worries me. And some kind of, as an older generation, there are certain value systems we need to pass on to the current generation. But it seems as if everything that we went through is not in accordance with the way they live life in this current generation. So then you bet to, then you start asking yourself, if what I went through is not normal, then what is the new norm? How can I impact this current generation? Because I can only draw from what I know. I can't give you what I don't have. That's impossible. I can't give you what I don't have. And what I have is born out of pain, stoic lifestyle, but some of them don't want, there's no hard work. Hard work is a foreign concept. Hard work is actually a foreign concept. That's why, I was reading an article that about 60-something% of American youth are not qualified to join the military. I was like, wow, this is crazy. Because nobody wants to do the hard work. Nobody wants to go through that pain, excruciating pain. But I always tell people, when I was in Okinawa, Japan, I was stationed over there. There is a short mountain that we used to run every morning. I was there. That mountain is only about half a mile long. But I tell you what, it was the most painful experience ever. But at the end of it all, when I get to the top of the mountain, I have this nice view of Ryukyu Islands. I mean, the breeze and everything is so rejuvenating, But I always keep in mind, like, look, regardless of whatever pain I'm going through, at least when I get to the top, I have the pleasure to see this awesome view. And I think if we can tell this generation that, look, the pain is temporal. The pain is always temporal, but the gain is always permanent, but it's always kind of theoretical in nature that, like, what does that mean? Pain is temporal and gain is permanent. It's like speaking in some philosophical stuff, but I try as much as possible to. I deal with young adults, young leaders a lot, and you only can do the best and kind of mentor them and teach them, like, this is what I did. I understand this is what is going on your disposition, but this is what I went through, and this is how I play the game. You can do something different, but I cannot guarantee the outcome of whatever you're going through. But this one I've been through, I can tell you to the time that this is how it's going to look like.
But I wanted to ask you, mate, there's so much information out there online where I don't have to make the same mistakes in my business as the person over here that is going to teach me how to do it. So there always feels like there's a shortcut to getting somewhere because somebody's already walked that path there before you. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts about that. Is, in my view, that I think that's what's perpetuating people not wanting to dive in and to have a go at something and realize that it's actually really hard to build a business. It's actually really hard to get customers because they think that if they pay somebody to actually go and show them the way, that's going to be a shortcut to it. But there are no shortcuts to success. And I'm interested just to hear your feedback on that.
Rob, I've heard this, that, there are books, there are all these things, something for dummies, how to do all this and everything. It's just, for me, I believe this is just to prepare your mind for things to come. It's just to prepare your mind. I mean, whatever is going to be is going to be. The pain, the hard is still going to, different errors, different challenges, different problem. The problem is still relatively the same, but you still have to go through it regardless. But it's just to prepare your mind that when you go through this is what you expect. You can't say because somebody has gone through this path before that you're not going to go through it. There are certain rites of passage you have to go through in business. There's I was consulting with a business owner in Nigeria, and they were telling him that if you haven't been arrested by police or been harassed by the government for some kind of fraudulent dealings, that you've not really arrived as a businessman.
You haven't got a real business yet.
yeah, exactly. Adjoining with other people's experience and understanding what they went through, it gives you some kind of knowledge base that when you go through yours, you have a place to draw strength from. It's not for you that you're not going to go through it. Absolutely not. Different faiths will preach that, it's all going to be good, but you're going to pass through certain things. An ability to be resilient, like you mentioned, resiliency is built by sharing experiences from those that have gone through ahead of you. That's how you build resiliency. Those days will come. They will definitely come, and you can't miss it. It's just like growing as a baby, and growing from a baby to a toddler to and then to a teenager. Those growing pains are not going to be, because I have two teenagers, right? One went through the teenage days. Because that one went through teenage, that doesn't mean that the one following is not going to go through it. Absolutely. But I know how to manage them. So, and that's what experiences are for. Previous experiences are for you to manage and to build resiliences, and also more so in tolerance, to build tolerance as well, because so that you don't go crazy during the experience. That's what I see from my point of view. And if anyone thinks that is a shortcut, man, they're in for a long haul.
I think the vulnerability is often something that we're not taught to demonstrate. And one of the things that I learned from one of my mentors, he said, as a salesperson, as a business person, you've always got to be on the up and up and up. Everything's got to be okay. Everything's got to be rosy. Business has got to be better this year than it was last year. My sales are higher than last year. My income's up. And I'd heard my mentor say that many times. So based on what a mentor told me, I thought maybe I shouldn't show vulnerability. Over the years, what happened, I'd created such a squeaky clean perception that people just assumed everything happened easily and naturally for me. And it started to create a distance between me and my ideal customer. And another mentor said to me, he said, Daniel, he said, what you have to master is being within arm's reach of somebody. If you're too good, if you're too clean, if everything was too easy, they can't reach out and grab you. And that's what they need. And I remember it was 2014. I was sitting in my apartment building in the basement in my car, and I was biting my steering wheel. I wasn't hungry. I was angry. And see, what I know about anger is the best way to get anger out of the body is to hit something or somebody, but you can't hit somebody, or you bite something, you chew into a steak. But there I am biting my steering wheel. I didn't know what else to do. And then I was bawling my eyes out. And I was sitting in the garage and I wasn't dealing with it and I wasn't talking to anybody about it. So some mentorship went in the wrong direction. Some beliefs weren't working for me and I was suffering in silence.
Yeah.
Second problem that arose from that, I didn't manage my emotions correctly, but I didn't discuss this with my customers because I thought if I bring that up and I haven't addressed it, then I'm going to feel like a failure or I'm going to feel like a false prophet. And so I know it's been dangerous, but teaching vulnerability, I think, is going to be key for this generation to learn to express it without wallowing in it, to be able to express it and deal with it.
Exactly. And I also believe that it's more relatable. People will understand that, okay, this man is going through the same thing I'm going through. It's just like marriage. You know, you think, wow, this marriage is so perfect. And then you start hearing stories like, oh, wow, this guy is not as... It's not what I think it is. It's just like me, you know. And then you realize that you're not the only one in this game of marriage. And the same thing with business. And I think when people understand that you're just human, you're just like human. You have the same fallibility like just like every other humans, you know. And you fall and then you pick yourself up and rise. I think you'll be more believable. And whenever you sell to them, they will believe you and they'll buy from you because they realize that it's just a regular guy just like me, you know. And the moment we create this false pretense that this is what life's supposed to be, and I see it every day. Even I see with a lot of my friends as well. You know, you have this false pretense, and I was like, wow, this is quite interesting, and it shows the level of ingenuity, you know. And people can, in some culture, they can smell somebody being phony, you know. They'll be like that. I don't think that guy is real. You know, because certain things will not add up. You know, what you presented to the world and what is going on in the back will not jive. There's not going to be aligning, and people will definitely know. And then you rather tell them yourself rather than for them to find out, because for them to find out, it's a different ball game. You just like, you know, people in the tabloids. You rather come out and address it heads on than before people dig it up like, oh, because he was caught, that's why he said I'm sorry. No, you know, that kind of a thing. And your believability and your credibility are just gone to shit for the lack of, I hope I can use such word on your podcast.
100, but Aussies, 100%. More swear words, the better.
So, you know, and in business, your credibility matters a lot. You know, ability for people to reach you that this is who he is, this is what he says, and he is what he is, you know, that kind of a thing. So, and you're absolutely right. Teaching vulnerability is one of the key things that, and you can't find those in any business school. You can't find those in any curriculum. You have to learn it. These are the things, it's part of the emotional intelligence deal. Like, look, this is who I am as a person. You know, I'm not a superstar. I'm just a regular guy that did the best I could in my own little way. And Lord kind of found me along the way, you know, that kind of a thing. And I can tell you the same thing. If I tell you that you live your life as I live mine, I will tell you you're absolutely wrong, because I was lucky in some instances. And, you know, I found all kind of luck along the way, and I find myself on the right path. If some other people live the life like I did, they might not find the same outcome, you know. So, but I'll tell them to, you know, to understand, you know, their vulnerability as well and embrace it. Don't shy away from it. Embrace it. Don't try to be phony. Just embrace it. I mean, and you said, don't wallow in it. I'm weak in certain areas. I understand my weakness. They are weakness for a certain reason, and they'll stay being a weakness. But I'm not going to capitalize on it. I'll move on to my strength, and I'll do more with my strength rather than wallowing in my weakness.
Yeah, that's beautifully articulated and beautifully said. There's value bombs dropping everywhere there. That's awesome, mate. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to share, in the spirit of sharing, Daniel shared one. I wanted to share one as well. And one of my experiences more recently, in fact, has been around that topic of resilience. The topic of resilience, when things go wrong, gives you a little bit more foresight. Now, I think it's really easy in life to look back in hindsight at something and say, well, I should have done it like that. But it's very, very hard to have foresight in your life, and particularly in your business. I've always struggled with that, to understand where you are in relation to where you want to be and then make the right moves at the right time. You know, it's easy to look back and go, damn, I should have done this or I should have done that. And recently for me, what I discovered was, if I don't take things too seriously when they go wrong, I find that I can be more vulnerable. And it's like, the world's not going to end. Nobody died. Customers didn't die. I didn't die. My business is still here. I made some mistakes. It's not such a big deal. And what I discovered was, if I use a little bit of humor and I make fun of myself a little bit, it helps me to be more vulnerable and to share it. And what it does is it kind of disarms that, something went wrong in your business when you're telling somebody. So being vulnerable doesn't always mean going over and crying in your pillow and having somebody come over to you and say, hey, what's wrong, mate? Are you all right? Do you need a hug? No, I don't need a hug. I'm all right. And what I discovered is, the way I kind of make fun of myself is, business is a game of snakes and ladders. Remember, you played snakes and ladders when you were a kid. You roll the dice and you get on the ladder and you go up, and then you go across a little bit. You get on another ladder and you go up. And like, I'm beating everybody, and I'm all I've got to do is roll a 3 until I win, and I roll a 2 and I end up on the snake and I'm all the way back down to the bottom. That happened to me recently in my business. And I think business is a game of snakes and ladders. And what happened to me is, I got down the bottom and I felt like I was right back at square one. And I was like, man, I wish the entrepreneurial lessons would come easier. Well, it wasn't that hard, but I wish they'd come damn faster. And then I had people saying, well, what's wrong? Everything all right? It's snakes and ladders. You were doing so well, and now you're not doing well. What's wrong? And that gave me the opportunity to open up and share a little bit. And I did it kind of in jest of myself. And what that did was it allowed me to communicate what was wrong, and it allowed me to kind of disarm the conversation away from, oh my God, is everything okay? Are you going to be able to pay the bills and eat? Yeah, I'm good. It kind of got rid of that. But, I really do wish entrepreneurial lessons came easier and they were shorter. And if you're listening to this or watching this, just remember that business and life in general is a game of snakes and ladders. There's ups and downs all the time, and how you deal with those and how you react to those things is a test of your character on a day-to-day basis.
Yes. And you build those characters when no one is watching. Because that's when, during those dark days, that's when you build those character, because the trying days will come. Oh yes, they will.
Absolutely.
Rob, when you were talking about snakes and ladders, I thought you might have been at my wedding and listening to my wedding speech. I said at my wedding speech, and now I got a few strange looks. I said, marriage is like a game of Dungeons and Dragons. You've got to slay a few dragons before you get the princess.
Yeah. This is true. This is true. Absolutely. See, that's life, right? You can compare it to like a 1980s board game.
Yeah.
I'm just going to share a screenshot here, gentlemen, and just have a look at this. Today, we can actually measure resiliency. I use these technologies and these behavioral assessments, and we can start to measure resiliency. And so people who are struggling in business today can have a scientific look at how they're approaching certain areas of their business game. So we can have a look at things like resiliency, where people are high and where people are low. We can also have a look at their futuristic thinking. So what you were talking about there before, Rob, people looking to the future, we can actually measure that. And so if somebody's not utilizing that, it's a learnable skill. And that's what I believe people have to know. It's not something that's inborn into you. It's a learnable skill. And if you start to learn on it, you can look out into the future and make better decisions today, because the mind works in two directions. It works based on your goals and the direction that you're going. And it also looks to the past and says, where have I been? and then you make a decision right now. But you have to be able to look further out into the future. And in today's world, based on my research, is there's a couple of different perspectives of time. And most people who get paid day to day, their time perspective is day to day. So they actually don't look out into the future any further than 5 p.m. when they're going to get paid. People who get paid week to week have a time perspective of a week. People who get paid month to month have a time perspective of a month. So when we look at these challenges in society, it can also be how we structure it based on time perspectives. And on the studies in Harvard University by Dr. Richard Banfield, he said the biggest predictor of success in the American society is a long time perspective. And it's being able to look at these things. And I know, Rob, you say over and over, it's just going to be a blip on the radar. But if you can't look out there far enough in the future, you can't understand that today it's just a blip.
Absolutely. I would echo that so much. And I had a very wise colleague of mine. He's one of my good friends here in Sydney. He's from a Chinese background, so he's a first generation Aussie like me. But his mum and dad immigrated from China. And yeah, Michael, yeah. And so when I first kicked off this business, Michael would ask me, "What are you doing? What's happening?" And I'm like, "I'm making hay while the sun shines." And I didn't realize I was playing snakes and ladders then. And I thought that I was going to offload this business and get out of it and sell it and make a big chunk of change and do that in a short space of time. And he was like, "What are you talking about, man? Why don't you build a company that not your family is proud of, not your community is proud of. Build a company that your country is proud of." And he was saying to me, in Chinese culture, that's what they try and do. And they try and build a company that's a centurion company that's going to last 100 years. And I thought he was crazy. And I thought he's giving me all these crazy Chinese proverbs while we're eating noodles in Hurstville over lunch. And I'm like, I'm just rolling my eyes at him. Dude, I'm just going to sell the company and I'm going to cash out and I'm going to sit over there on my stump and count my cash. And he's like, "Nah, man, build it so it lasts 100 years. And over a period of probably a week or so, I realized he was right. And it completely changed my perspective on everything. When I look at something in the long term, my decision-making process changed. I slowed everything down and I wasn't so stressed. Actually, that was the best part about it.
The centurion business.
Centurion.
Adebayo, when we spoke the other day, you mentioned one of the greatest joys in your life was to have a life of service.
Yes.
And I understood the concept, but I've never experienced this in my life. I come from a family of farmers. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and we've always been carving out our own way for our own little dynasties, our own little centurion companies. But you mentioned this life of service. And when you started to mention this life of service, living for something bigger than yourself, doing something bigger than your city, your state, doing something for your country, I noticed that you started to light up. But I don't understand this life of service because you've led people into battle for the past 20 years. What is this life of service that is so important to you?
It is something that I didn't start on, that I want to start a life of service. It's something I realized along the way. I shared a little bit about my background growing up. I grew up in Nigeria, my childhood days in Nigeria. Actually, it's very funny because I'm writing my book on my journey. And the chapter that I'm on is like growing up in Nigeria. And the issue of governance, leadership was an afterthought during those times because I lived under the military regime during those days. So the structure, the democratic values, all those things were non-existent. So when I migrated to the United States and I started hearing all these foreign words of duty, honor, country, all this service and everything, it's like, whatever, man. This is all these Western, jargons that it kind of brainwash you, and then you just be part of the old system and whatnot. So I joined the military. Actually, I joined the military to go to school so that they can pay for my school fees. I joined when they say, be all you can be. You go, you join, and they'll pay my school, so why not? But when I joined, I fell in love with the people. It was like a melting pot of different cultures. People come from different walks of life. You wake up like 5 a.m. in the morning and you're so happy to run. I was like, wow, this is a very strange world, and then the more I get into it, the more I begin, we kind of look after each other. We go to the clubs, we go out, we always stick together, and I've never experienced such. I've never experienced such. I mean, it's not by virtue of where I came from. It's just the fact that I was never around people that are genuinely clear about you. And then as time went on, as I progressed in my career and then start leading soldiers in combat, you realize that it's not about you no more. It's about people left and right of you. When the bullets start flying, it's not even about the country. It's about all of you trying to get home alive, and that strikes a different bond. We work together. You pull people that are under enemy fire. Then you realize that why do you do this? It's just an innate thing. It doesn't somebody say, oh, go pull that guy. It's good. You're getting shot at. You feel like this is the right thing to do, and so it's the life of service. When I told you about my experience when I was in Afghanistan, we were going for a patrol. And I mean, the place we were going was dangerous. And I told all my guys, just go and call your family before we get on the road. And I realized that I was so concerned about others actually calling their family that I forgot to call mine. Then I realized, wow, I have changed. I came in one teenager, selfish bastard, into one that actually cares about impact of his people. I mean, impact in his own world, how his people feel. I mean, how people feel and about what they're doing. And more importantly, how I fit into these dynamics, the whole changing world dynamics. And this life of service is very profound. It's probably the noblest call anyone can I mean, anyone can yield to. Only few, I mean, beside the military, the firemen, the police, the teachers, it's something that you believe wholeheartedly. You're not getting paid. Like what you put in and what you get is completely different. They're like days and night, and that is service. You're not getting paid your worth. That's pretty much it. But you enjoy doing it because it is the right thing to do. And when you serve others, people don't know this. People have, we all work from our position of being self-centered. Businesses forget profit and loss, try to do the non-profit stuff. But the baseline is we're all self-centered. We're all selfish to the core. It's just the way of the world. But when you work in something that is bigger than yourself, it's quite profound. You don't, when you serve others, you serve yourself. And people don't understand that. But like, if I serve others, if I use my time to help develop others, I don't have time to develop myself. No, it doesn't work that way. When you serve others, you serve yourself. And people don't realize it until they realize that, wow, I've actually gained something out of this. But when we start looking at this from self-centered, we'll never actually receive or imbibe that spirit of service. And it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. And that's the greatest thing I drew coming out of the United States Army, is the fact that I can see things bigger than myself. And to be honest with you, from here on now, after retirement, I don't see myself doing anything else than to serve others. It just, I find myself serving in my local church and in my community here, and I'll continue to serve until the time comes I can't serve no more. Because it is you share, your joy is kind of compounded when you see others succeeding. It's not about you, because when you succeed, when others succeed, you succeed as well. It's kind of it's a permutation and combination in mathematics, and it's kind of compounding interest, sort of. And people don't understand it. I still don't get it, why people don't understand that if you serve others, you're serving yourself. A gentleman shared me a story of a young man back in the days in the 60s actually helped these young folks to gain skill level of work. Carpenters, photographers, mechanics, and whatnot. He never really spent so much time on himself. He did later on when those guys actually graduated and they became skilled men. So what happened down the line is that this man got older in his 50s, in his 60s. He couldn't do much job again. But the folks that he has helped back in the days actually came back to his rescue. Like, what are you doing though? I'm retired. I don't do much right now. They gave him certain contract that he doesn't have to do much. Imagine that. He has gained so much now in his later years than he ever gained when he was younger. These stories this just one out of trillions of stories out there, how people have been able to achieve a greater height by helping others. And it's quite difficult, honestly, as a businessman to realize that kind of mindset. But I've enjoyed it. I lived it. And I think one day, Rob might be able to chime in a little bit, but I don't know how much I can explain the life of service. It's just like,
I would add to that by saying, the definition for me is related to responsibility, because in the military, you get a level of responsibility that you just don't get outside in the civilian world. That's, not 100% true, but the vast majority of what you have to do as a civilian doesn't involve people living or dying. It involves getting a job done, getting a project finished, getting something completed, and helping people to do things. And I think that when you put in a position where other people's lives are at stake and you've got to look after them and you've got to make good decisions, because if you don't make good decisions, really bad things are going to happen. Everything in the military, I kind of like to say, is exactly the same as what it is in the civilian world. It's just amplified by a factor of about 1,000. If something goes wrong in the military, somebody might lose their life. If something goes wrong in business, nobody's going to lose their life. Someone might lose their job at worst. So it's just the amplification of it. I can remember a time as a young man, once I got qualified, and when I was first in the Royal Australian Navy, if you've ever seen a Navy ship go out of a harbour or come back into a harbour, sailors stand on the outside of the ship in their uniform, and you've got to go downstairs, you got to iron your uniform, you get your hat, you do it all. It's called, in the Australian Navy, it's called specials is what we call it. Special sea dutyman, close up is what they say. And you go to your part of the ship and you go and do your thing and you stand there. And as you come into Sydney Harbour, you have all of the civilian boats come by, and different times of years, different people coming past, and they come right up close to you and say hello to you. They wave to you, you wave back to them and things like that. And they're like, hello, sailor. And they're doing all of these sorts of things. It's a really kind of empowering experience. And a similar comparison to that is, as you put a uniform on, I kind of think that you're playing for your country. I feel like when I put that Army uniform on or that Navy uniform on, I felt like I was representing the country, because the job that was given to me had a lot of responsibility associated with it. I had other people that I was responsible for. And then I've got this uniform that I need to wear properly and behave in a certain way. Otherwise, you're going to look like an idiot in front of everybody. So you have this level of responsibility in the military that you don't really find elsewhere. And you kind of get indoctrinated into that. You kind of, the indoctrination or brainwashing, if you like, on the front end of that helps you to understand the meaning of all of those things. And all militaries around the world go through the same things. And, that kind of encompasses service for me. And I really think that you can still find the same level of servitude outside as a civilian, even if you've never served in the military. And that's just by being selfless, by helping others, by doing the right thing and doing what you say it is that you're going to do. And I really believe when you behave in a selfless way to help other people, that is a form of service. The other day, I was out for my afternoon walk after I've been sitting inside for 8 hours working away at my computer and need to get up and go and move. And walking up the road, there was probably 4 or 5 people in front of me, and we're walking in the car park, and this woman was opening the boot of the car, pulling the spare tire out. And there was about 4 or 5 people in front of me, all men, all by themselves, and they all walked past her. And I thought, really? No one's going to go and help her? And I went over and I said, hello, do you need some help? And she said, no, I'm good. And I said, well, show me how you're going to take the tire off. And she had the wheel brace and she started to undo the nut like that, but she hadn't put the jack and jacked the car up.
Okay.
And I said, well, if you're going to take the tire off like that, how are you going to get the new one on because it's not jacked up? And she was like, oh, I never thought of that. I said, why don't you just let me help you? I'll help you. So it took me like 10 minutes to change a tire. It's no big deal. And I put the dead one in the boot for her and closed it. And she was like really grateful. And she was like and I'm like, yeah, no worries. All good. Have a great afternoon. And off I went. And I thought, it just takes a moment of your day to do the right thing and help another person like that. And you could still get that feeling of service that we felt in the military by helping another person, by living a good life and doing the right thing by people. I think that's how I would sum it up.
Very, very interesting. You mentioned that story there about helping a lady with her tire. 4 people have walked past, you've stopped, you've offered help, and she still said no.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see in business today is that asking for help has become a dirty word. And I think there's a huge problem here that's coming from our British heritage, where we've got to have this stiff upper lip, where we've always got to, be tougher. Real men don't cry. And I think help's become a dirty word. And changing this perspective and these perceptions is going to be ultimately important, because 85% of businesses fail because of management incompetence. And it's those people who don't know enough to survive. They ruin their own lives, their families, their communities, simply because they don't ask for help. But it's not just their fault, because it's also the community fault, because they don't allow them to ask for help. So knowing this, I've been having a look at some suicide rates around the world. And the suicide rate in Australia is expected to rise by 40% in the years ahead. And people aren't reaching.
That's a very alarming stat.
It's huge. In America, the statistics show that the highest rate of heart attacks happen on a Monday morning, because people are coming to a place of work where they hate to be. They don't like being there. And the body's saying, don't make me go to work for another day. And then if the heart attack doesn't kill them, the thing that I learned after that is the highest rate of suicide takes place on a Monday after lunch, where they go out for lunch and they come back to this place of work and say, I can't live another day like this. And they throw themselves out of the window. And the paramedics are ready for the heart attacks on Monday morning, and the fire brigade and the police are ready for the suicides on Monday afternoon. And I believe it comes from this not accepting help. When somebody offers their hand and you reject it based on your own perception of thinking, hey, maybe they don't think I'm competent. Maybe they'll think I'm incompetent. Maybe they think I'm a fool. But there's some big problems out there. And I think with conversations like this, Adebayo, they need to be addressed.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I thought.
My question is, what are some of the dark moments in your life? You're an immigrant. You've left your homeland. You've come to a new land. You're of a different color skin. You've joined the military. You've left the military after 20 years. You've started business. What are some of those dark moments so other people can realize that these things are happening to them?
So one of the dark moments is the fact of when I realized I have chronic PTSD. And there's stigmatization going on in our society about mental health. Most people don't want to talk about it. They believe you're crazy. But I always tell them, I don't wake up one morning and make myself, mentally heal, so to say, It's because of the experiences which I went through. And it's not because I put myself through that experience. It's just what is needed at a particular point in time. And the body reacts differently when you're going through this so-called, switch of emotion. Today you're in combat, tomorrow you are not, back and forth. And some of those experiences have a way of kind of, stressing your life out and your psychological well-being. And for that in itself, for me coming to terms with it and seeking help was very pivotal in my after military life, what I'm going to do. I'm not going to wail in my own, I have PTSD, I can't work again, but I need to seek help. And being an American, it's not something we do. Actually, it's un-American to seek help. It's American, we like to thump our chests, we're very individualistic in nature. And it's something that is actually crippling a lot of businesses, as you said, these days. And also, and that's what we're trained to be that way. We don't ask for help. Even when I was in the military, if you're doing that navigation and you ask for help, you pretty much look at it like the bastard, the Dutberg of the old unit. Why would you ask for help on a navigation? No, you'd rather get lost. At least you'd rather get lost than to ask for help. You see how crazy that was? You'd rather get lost, doing that navigation than to ask for help. It's because we believe in that. Like, I'd rather go wrong, at least I'm man enough to go wrong than to ask for help, which is the very wrong way to look at life, And the same thing is that kind of knowledge transfer is kind of filtering into the way we do things. You know, kids are trained to not ask for help. You do it by yourself. And I don't know how we can change this culture. But for me, I determined that when I discovered that something is just not right, the way I'm addressing people, the way I'm, flipping people off, the way, sometimes your way of life, and if you're having some PTSD, you might not see some clear difference because they sometimes they're like the same thing, but like, how do you know? It's like, I just know that something is not clicking right. Something is not right. And for myself and for the family, and if I want to prolong my life, or I don't want to, like you said, I'm kind of futuristic in my work. These are the things I want to do in the nearest future. And for me to be able to do that, I have to address this now. And that's why I seek help. And it's a continual process. It's not an ever done deal. And the people are, and then you have a community of folks around you encouraging you, like, look, this is just as long as you're doing an everyday, day by day, you put one step after the other, and you can only hope for the best, And I hope everyone can understand that seeking help is one of the greatest things you can ever do for yourself. Seeking help is a strength in itself. Ability to swallow your own pride and say, you know what, I'll do this. I'll do this. And I'll tell you, I failed jump master school when I was a paratrooper. I failed it twice. I could have asked for help, but I was like, nope. I don't want people to look me that I'm weak. It's like certain things are like weakness. You can't do this. You look weak doing that. And I failed twice. I could have easily. There's a trick to it. There's a ways to do jump master when you inspect the paratrooper about to jump out of airplanes. But I thought I can just muscle it through my own, and I failed. I failed woefully. And a lesson learned. Lesson learned in a place whereby you don't know how to do it. Ask for help. Heaven else doesn't pull a hair out of my head. Not at all. It doesn't. And if you look at me like I'm weak, oh well, it's your own palaver. It's your own prerogative, not mine. And I've always had that outlook on life. And at the moment I kind of shifted and perverted my outlook on life, things become easier. It's very hard to think you can always do it by yourself. Like nobody else needs to help you. And if we've carried on, and most Americans have carried that mentality to business, and that's why a lot of businesses are failing. Seek for help all day long. Even I'll be on my knees. I do not care. I'll be on my knees begging for help, because he who has a laugh. He who laugh last, laugh best. I think that's an English idiom. Like he who laugh last, laugh best. I don't care, as long as I get the outcome out of it. And that's what I have the same mentality addressed when I approach my therapist. Like, look, I think something is wrong with me. And from there, I'll be able to find some kind of ease in life. Because if not, who knows what my life would have been if I didn't seek help. So I always look at it that way. And for me, that's really helped me. And always advocate for it. Look, ask for help. If something is wrong with you, ask for help. It's like some people don't even go to the hospital. Man, they don't even go to the hospital. Something is wrong. For me, if something is wrong, I'll be the first one in the hospital because you never know. You never know what this thing can turn up to. Oh, you're not man enough. You've been a sissy. Oh, well, but we have to change that culture, that mentality. And I think a lot of things are changing now. We have a lot of mental health professionals that are helping to change the culture. But I mean, that stoic 1960, 1950 behavior, man, that thing is still well ingrained in our culture. And I think we need to dilute it a little bit about asking people to seek for help. Even if you don't ask for other people, at least find something. Like somebody told me, I don't cry. Oh, well, that's good for you. I cry. It's good for me. Emotional release. I cry. I mean, what's wrong with a man crying? What is wrong with a man crying? A man shouldn't cry. Says who? Whose book? Who wrote the book? Who wrote these rules that we confine ourselves to all these crazy rules that men shouldn't do this, boys should do this, girls like says who? And these are some of the things that is actually affecting different cultures and our society at large. Everything has been very siloic way of looking at things. Men should not be seen in the kitchen. Some cultures is like that. Women should be doing this. No. And this is the same thing as men should not cry. Men should not do this. You always stand brave. Oh, well, and how has that helped us so far? Absolutely not. We have men in America incarcerated because of all this nonsense, and so for me, I'm very deeply passionate about this because it has saved my life, and this is a life-saving experience. So I'm always help all day long. I even ask for help more than I do it myself, you know. but there's so much. There's so many helping hands out there that can help you. Some things I don't know, I ask for people that know. You know, I'm not Jack. I don't know, you know. Actually, I know nothing. I absolutely know nothing. You know, I ask other people to help me because I don't know nothing. And you gain so much perspective when you help others to help you in thinking, help you in doing certain things. You have a broader way of looking at life. But you know, I've seen a lot of friends that have passed because of inability to recognize. I've seen people who have died of suicide. I've seen people that, you know, and this is a real life thing. You know, I'm not saying that they haven't asked for help. I'm just saying that something ain't right. But for me, I just, at some point I realized that if I don't do this, not only my life would change, but life of people around me would do at the same time.
Yeah, beautifully said.
You just mentioned there about suicide. Earlier today, I was reading an article here in Forbes magazine, and it said that suicide is also a very impulsive act. And the thought occurs about 15 minutes before the suicide. So training people how to think before these things happen is going to be absolutely critical. And it's 15 minutes. It's quite scary. Rob, what about some of those moments for you in your life? What have been some of those dark moments for you? You've been a businessman, you've served country and Queen. What's it been for you?
It's not so much my personal moments. I think the way I describe it, and again, I use a little bit of humor and poke fun at myself because I think that's the way that I kind of make light of things, and it helps me to communicate the message nicely. And one of the things that I discovered after nudging up against 400 interviews, doing this podcasting thing myself, being interviewed and interviewing other people, is that the problems that you think that you have, the little skeletons that you have that you don't tell anybody about, are really not that bad. And you make, for some reason, you make a mountain out of a molehill in your own mind's eye about something that went wrong. But after so many interviews and so much talking about doing whatever it takes to succeed, and you find people go on a journey and they take you all the way down to the bottom. They hit rock bottom before they turn around, and everybody's rock bottom is different. You know, some people's rock bottom is financial, some people's is health, some is relationships. And the rock bottoms that you hear about consistently, and some weeks I'll do 5 or 6 interviews. And if you hear 5 or 6 different stories about hitting rock bottom, you kind of look at your own life and go, man, I've got it pretty good compared to these people. Or you might even look at it and go, man, I've got it pretty tough compared to these people. But what you're doing is you're comparing yourself to other people all the time. And you shouldn't compare yourself to other people all the time. What you should do is just address your own problems, ask for help, because it's really not that big a deal to ask for a little bit of help. You're not born into this world as a perfect person, expected to know all of these things about life. And for me, I kind of resisted asking for help for a long time about many different issues in my life. I had a parachute malfunction when I was at the parachute school, and something happens in the chemistry of your brain in a PTSD thing. I don't think I suffered from PTSD. I suffered really badly from anxiety as a result of that. And I would have this rising anxiety just for no reason out of the blue. And it only happened after that had happened to me. Even though nothing happened to me, I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm completely fine. I just had a scary experience that changed the chemistry in my brain when that had happened. And I obviously thought that I was going to die, but I didn't. And I would go back to that moment and relive that moment constantly. But then I realized that, hey, I'm all right. And then I had this bad anxiety. And I was like, the big tough paratrooper doesn't ask for help. Don't ask nobody for help. I'm fine. Like, it doesn't last long. It's only sort of 5 or 10 minutes. So I can make my way through it each time. And I've got my own coping mechanisms. But the reality is I should have sought help. And I should have sought help much sooner than I did, because it did start to affect my life, started to affect my family, my children, and just the way that I was in the world. And again, I can only look back with hindsight and say that. But the reality is it's not such a big thing. There's plenty of people that had the same malfunction as me. And, you know, if somebody had to just grab me and said, hey, listen, man, you know, everything's going to be all right. It's normal to feel like that. You're going to go through these feelings. You're going to experience these things. It's just not such a bad thing. It's completely normal that you're feeling like that. the normality of it then would have, made it not something that I wanted to hide away because I was scared to show people that stuff. And over time, I got better and I got myself better, but I would have got better much sooner and much faster if I had have put my hand up and said, hey, this is what happened to me and this is what's happening to me. Can somebody help?
Awesome.
I want to draw a picture up here on the screen for both of you gentlemen, and we call it the universal model of change. And I think it's a really good picture for most people to understand. And it looks like that square root sign from when we were back in school.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is at point A here, everything in our life is going along A-OK. Everything's fine. It's flying around at 40,000 feet and there's no turbulence. And all of a sudden you come to point B in your life and there's this clear air turbulence. It comes in totally unexpected. Air traffic control doesn't warn the captain. The first officer doesn't know what's going on. And all of a sudden, things start to get a little bit bumpy. And what people tend to do here is try to go back to what they were doing before. And so they say something's going wrong. Instead of making an improvement in their life, they try to go back to do what they were doing before. Eventually, after trying that, they go on this slippery slope all the way down to the pit of despair. They get down to rock bottom and they think they have to follow that path. But like you were saying before, Adebayo, there is no book that says you have to hit rock bottom. There is no book that says you have to go through problems like this. So as a coach, what we say to our clients, you don't have to go from A to B to C. You can go over here to D. And if you just ask for help, you don't have to go through that pit of despair. You don't have to go through all of that heartache because, like Rob said, other people have been through this before. Other people have had this problem. If you ask for help, they can show you what they did to avoid that situation going wrong in your life. But unfortunately, what happens, and we get back to that future insight, is most people aren't clear on their future and where they're going. So they get to D and they've just got far enough away from the problem so it doesn't bother them anymore. But what they really need to have is that new place in life, that new next level, and they're going to continue on that path just a little bit further. And if they follow that universal model of change, they will learn from that experience. They'll learn coping mechanisms. And then as soon as they can teach this to somebody else, they actually get to learn it for a second time. And then that resiliency score starts to develop. And we see it as in this universal model of change. And if we can follow that sequence, then we'll move through these episodes, like Rob says, like a blip on the radar.
And you're absolutely right. When my mental health professional was asking me, what do I want out of this? I said, I just want to go back to my old ways. I just want to do what I used to do before. And I was stuck there for a couple of years. And it was like, why do you want to go back there? Because that's what I knew. But I now realize that I have changed. Like Rob said, a lot of things have changed in me. Instead of me to embrace the new me, I kept running back to my old me. I want to be able to, do like 50 miles every day on my bike. Those days are long, and I don't even like biking no more. I just have to embrace something new, and for years I was stuck on that. Like, I just want to go back to my old habits, but those things are long gone. Actually, they weren't appealing to me no more. And that's one of the reasons why I realized that something's absolutely wrong with me. And it took me years to realize that, no, I have changed. I will never get back to that old self ever again. I need to embrace this new me and keep moving forward. And that is when I started my own healing process. So thank you for actually sharing that, because that's awesome. And it's easier said than done, actually, but I lived through it. I'm like, I just want to go back. Trust me, whatever you need to do, medication, whatever, I just need to go back to my old life 5 years ago, but that never happened. Then I realized that regardless of how much I tried to get back to my old life, it never happened. Okay, this is new me. What do I need to do? I enjoy photography. I just like, this is weird, but this is just what my new situation actually allows and kind of encouraged me to do that, and I'm grateful for that. I'm actually grateful for that. So thanks for sharing that, because that's quite profound.
My pleasure. Adebayo, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us here today. And before we wrap up, how could you summarize this dark side of business and some very simple steps for people to get out of it? What would you be doing, or what would you be saying to people who are in that situation now who need to get out of it?
So that side of business, and we've discussed it. Actually, we've hammered the nail so much. I think the nail probably broke by now. Is to embrace your imperfection. The darkness will show you everything about yourself that you don't like. It will show you everything about your business that you don't like. You're like, I don't want to turn away from this. But there are certain things that you can change. There are certain things you cannot change, especially for business. Understanding your weaknesses, understanding your strength. And this is where we spoke about emotional intelligence, not only on the individual side, but on the business side as well. What are you good at, and what do you suck at? You know, and understanding, and let your business know that this is what you stand for. You know, I'm not a proponent. I don't subscribe to the fact that you have to improve your weakness. Actually, it's not one of what I teach people. I was like, there's a weakness for a certain reason. Capitalize on your strength and let yourself propel you. You know, I used to tell people when I was in the military. I spent in the military for 20 years. And people, oh, you're a great runner. I was like, no, I hate running. I despise running. But people will never know. People think I'm a great runner. No, they don't understand. But I did enough just to make people think I'm a great runner. You know, I hated running, but nobody knew that. I hated running with passion. Actually, I hate with passion, but nobody knew, like, wow, you ran 10 miler, you did half marathon, you're great. Like, no, you just don't understand. I did just enough to mask my weakness from the world to see. But the people that really know me know I hate running. Ask them to do the same. Capitalize on your strength and let people understand that this is where you stand. Because the moment you embrace your imperfection, you're bound to be great. And that's the best I could. I live it in my own personal life. I've lived in my business life. It is what it is. The moment you shy away from your imperfection, that is the beginning of the doom. It's just the way of the world. You will continue to stay in the dark and remain in the dark. And you'll be thinking you're in the light. You know, it's this idea of ignorance. The people in the dark, but they think they're in the light. The best way to do it is seeking help for you to embrace yourself, because it's hard. It's hard. Even babies don't even like their own. I mean, babies don't even like the bad side of themselves, talk less of grown adults, you know, and we've transferred this thing instead of addressing it in our personal life, we transfer it to our business life. It's about embracing our imperfection. There is so much strength in it. There's a reason the world was created not to contain perfection. The world in itself cannot contain perfection. There's always going to be improvement. And that is why the imperfection, the moment you understand your imperfection, do the best you can. And if you cannot, just continue to hold on to your strength. And your strength alone will carry you through.
Well said. And Rob, your final thoughts in closing?
Yeah, I believe that tough men and women create good times. So if you're facing hard times in your business and you're going through a dark time in your business, tough it out, grit your teeth, dig in and hold the line, because if you just stick with it a little bit longer and you've got enough tolerance there, then you can tolerate it for long enough, you'll build enough resilience to get on the other side of it, and you'll close the gap from where you are to where you want to be. And I really believe with everything in my being that tough men and women make good times, because weak people quit and weak people let it go through to the keeper, and weak people don't ask for help. So ask for help, put your hand up, tough it out, and go all in.
I love you, Rob.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. And let me wrap up by saying the very best times of your life are in the future. The highest income of your life is in the future, and the happiest moments of your life are still yet to come. And the greatest achievements that you will ever achieve are still in the future. And that means your future is unlimited, because it's only held back by your imagination. So I hope these ideas that we've shared with you today are helpful, and the three of us wish you a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us. Ciao for now.
Bye.
See ya.